Discover 12 sinister 7-11 horror tales revealed to keep you awake all night. Lisa took a deep breath, clutching her pocketbook close as she stepped inside the flickering neon glow of the 7-Eleven. The night screamed emptiness, the air thick with something she couldn't quite define. The clock ticked ominously, each second stretching like an eternity. She felt the weight of her decision crashing down on her as the door creaked shut behind her. This wasn't just a job, it was salvation for her and her teenage son, Danny, or so she hoped. As the graveyard shift settled in, the usual crowd trickled through the tired truck driver with bloodshot eyes, a couple of teenagers laughing nervously as they loaded their arms with sugary snacks, and the familiar locals whose footsteps echoed in the dim glow of the overhead lights. But their laughter seemed to dry up the moment their eyes locked onto Lisa. It was unsettling. They knew too much. Rumors plagued the neighborhood like a ghost whispering warnings. A family had vanished from the nearby cul-de-sac, their home left to rot in silence. The locals laughed it off, but Lisa's heart raced with unease. What if, she mused, her thoughts spiraling. Was her family next? Her instincts nagged at her, making her skin crawl with each passing hour. A sonorous phone ringing shattered the quiet late one night. She picked up silence. Her heart thundered as panic washed over her. Just a prank, she muttered under her breath, trying to shake off the creeping dread. But after the third unanswered call, which was no prank, desperation knotted in her chest. Candy bars disappeared from the shelves, electronics went missing, and strange customers asked bizarrely personal questions about her and Danny. She could feel their eyes on her, probing, seeking. It made her stomach flip. What did they want? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The desperation tightened its grip on her as Jamie, an unnerving regular, loomed at the counter one night. The way he stared made her throat dry. You know, I heard a lot about you, Lisa, he smirked, leaning closer. Chills cascaded down her spine. It was then she spotted Danny, creeping into the store, his eyes wide with worry. The tension shifted as their gazes met. Everything clicked into place. She wasn't alone in this nightmare, but a malevolent figure lurked in the shadows behind Jamie, eyes gleaming with intent. The door creaked open again with a haunting wail, flickering lights illuminating the shimmering silhouette lurking in the dark corners. Lisa's breath quickened as a suffocating fear encased her, curling around her like a vice. Was it too late to escape? As her vision tunneled, closing in on that haunting figure, she knew one thing: she must fight for her son. But could she truly protect Danny from the shadows that now sought to consume them both? Lisa's heart hammered in her chest as the cold air surged through the store, whispering warnings in the flickering neon light. She could feel the walls closing in, the silent laughter of the customers now replaced by an oppressive stillness. The shadows seemed to pulse, breathing life into the very darkness that surrounded her. The lurking figure behind Jamie seemed to stretch and loom, ready to snatch her and Danny away. "Mom!" Danny called out, his voice breaking through the nightmare, but it only served to deepen her dread. She turned her head slightly, catching a glimpse of his panic-stricken face, but before she could react, Jamie grinned wider, revealing a mouth full of jagged teeth. "Don't worry, boy. Your mom is in good hands. We're just having a little chat." The words twisted in Lisa's gut like a knife. She stepped in front of Danny, fists clenched, her body tense, ready to defend him against the threat they now faced. She had always promised to protect him, but the fear gnawed at her. How far would she go to keep him safe? "Stay behind me," she whispered urgently, feeling the weight of the moment press down like lead. Just then, the sound of rustling from one of the aisles caught her attention. A tall figure emerged, face obscured by a hood, dragging something behind him, a long, knotted rope that seemed to slither across the tiled floor like a snake. The sight made her stomach churn. She felt trapped, like a rabbit cornered by hungry wolves. "Come on, let us have some fun," the hooded figure chimed, his voice slick and syrupy. He flicked the rope like a magician's trick, the end knotted into a coil that resembled a noose. "We've got a game to play," Lisa's heartbeat thundered in her ears. Panic surged as she glanced toward the door. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but Danny's terrified gaze anchored her, rooting her to the spot. The peculiar customers in every corner, once mere shadows, now stood as a wall of predatory eyes watching in silence, whispering amidst themselves. She spotted the security monitor flickering on the side wall images of the parking lot outside. Her breath caught when she saw a figure leaning against her car, arms crossed, just watching. It was a man she didn't recognize, dressed in dark clothing, his head tilted back, oblivious to the chaos inside. A chill traveled down her spine. It felt as if they were surrounded by an unseen net, tightening every moment. "Lisa, you can't escape," Jamie said, voice low and conspiratorial, as he stepped closer, inches from her face. She could smell the sourness of his breath. "You've already played your part. They know you. They want you." Her mind raced. Who wanted her? Why? And then, in a moment of desperation, she remembered the stories she'd heard, the ones that echoed in her mind like the tolling of a funeral bell. Families taken in the night, never to return. She couldn't let that be her family's fate. With sudden resolve, she turned to Danny. "Run. Get to the back," she yelled, her voice slicing through the tension like a knife. "Mom, now." Danny stumbled backward, fleeing towards the storage area as she pivoted, ready to face the nightmare head-on. With adrenaline surging through her veins, Lisa braced herself as the hooded figure lunged forward. But just as she prepared to fight, the power flickered, plunging the store into darkness. A collective gasp broke through the onlookers like a wave. The moment became absolute chaos. Panic erupted, muffled cries ringing in her ears. She could feel the darkness pulse around her, thick and invasive. And then, in the distance, she heard it, the sound of laughter, eerie and haunting, filling the space around her like a fog. "You think you can escape?" a voice echoed, sending shivers coursing down her spine. "The game has just begun." Lisa's breath caught as the lights flickered back on, revealing not just the chaos of panicked customers, but the entire store transformed, as if they were not alone anymore. What had they unleashed in their midst? She squeezed her eyes shut for just a moment, knowing she had to pull it together. There was no going back now. As the shadows loomed closer once more, she would have to plunge deeper into the heart of the terror. Would it lead to salvation or damnation? The answer awaited her as dark laughter rang out again. Would her next choice seal their fate forever? Lisa opened her eyes, heart racing, teeth clenched. The store was different now. The shelves leaned uneasily, their products rearranged into grotesque shapes that twisted and bent unnaturally. The flickering lights struggled to offer illumination, throwing sharp shadows that danced ominously along the walls. A quick glance revealed Danny's small frame disappearing into the narrow aisle, fear propelling him forward. "Danny!" she yelled, but her voice felt swallowed by the growing thickness of the air. From the corner of her eye, she saw Jamie, his grin widening as he enjoyed her panic. "You think you can keep him safe? The game isn't about him." His voice dropped, dripping with menace. "It's about you." Before she could respond, the hooded figure reappeared, gliding across the floor, pulling the rope behind him, a snake, ready to strike. The knot at the end seemed to pulse with life, as insidious as the laughter that echoed through the store. It was almost melodic, an unholy tune that made the hair at the back of her neck stand up. Every step she took felt heavier than the last, as though the darkness was wrapping around her ankles, pulling her down. "Get out!" Get out! Whispered voices flared around her, combined with hurried, panicked breaths of other customers who had fallen silent, their expressions frozen in dread. The laughter continued, slithering like smoke through her mind, mixing with memories she couldn't afford to recall. Images of lost families and grim fate stitched together like a quilt of fear flooded her thoughts, but she shoved them aside. She needed to focus. Look around, Lisa. Jamie shouted, voice rising with mock excitement. You're not just hunted, you're part of the game. This store, it's alive. It wanted you. It's hungry. She felt the heat of anger flare within her. Stay away from my son. The words burst forth, a desperate promise. Glaring at him, she surged forward. But the shadows twisted and warped, trying to ensnare her in their cold embrace. Suddenly, a hand shot out from the aisle, grabbing her wrist with a sharp intensity that made her gasp. She nearly recoiled, but then recognized the shaking figure of Danny. Mom! They're here. His eyes were wide with terror, wet with tears. Danny, we have to move. She pulled him closer, feeling the warmth radiate from his small body amidst the rising fear. They threaded their way through the tight space, weaving between shelves, searching for an exit, but the air grew staler with every step. The laughter writhed around them, a cacophony that seemed to breathe sound into the store's very foundation. It echoed like sinister applause, celebrating their despair. Where do we go? Danny cried, panicking. Towards the back. Lisa urged, but something tugged at her heart. An urge to look back, led by instinct. She turned, and there they were, eyes. Thousands of them. Translucent figures emerging from the shadows, grim smiles bearing teeth not quite human. Each seemed to come with a story soon to erupt into chaos, taunting her, as they swept closer. Join us, Lisa, one whispered, voice dripping with false sweetness. You can't escape your fate. You'll make a splendid addition. Danny tugged on her shirt, shaking. Mom, please. A sensation of dread washed over her as the laughter crescendoed. Instinctively, Lisa lunged toward the storage area, where the flickering lights dimmed one last time. And then, the air shattered. A chilling scream erupted. Danny! She spun, but the faces from the shadows surged forward, swallowing the light behind her, darkness closing in, greedy for her grasp. And then all was still. Silence smothered the space, a thick blanket heavy around her. Lisa felt herself pinned in a cocoon of despair, alone but for one whispered line that sent a shudder down her spine. Now the real game begins. In that moment, as the shadows surged forward again, Lisa understood something deep and dark awaited her. What was she willing to risk to save her son? The answer lay just beyond the veil, lurking in the depths of the store that had become their prison. Could it be that salvation was something worse than the horror they had just escaped? Lisa blinked, the heavy silence wrapping itself around her like a suffocating shroud. The store was now eerily still, but she could feel the throbbing pulse of the darkness, an entity yearning to break free. Danny was still at her side, his small form trembling, and she squeezed his hand tightly. Mom? He asked, voice barely a whisper. What's happening? Stay close, she replied, more to reassure herself than him. She scanned her surroundings. The aisles were no longer just aisles, they were corridors of entrapment, each lined with those unsettling figures, watching, waiting. Do you see them? Danny pointed, his voice quavering. Her heart sank. The spectral eyes weren't merely illusions, they were real, each one filled with a hunger that sent chills running down her spine. They licked their lips, their grotesque grins so wide they seemed to stretch their faces beyond the limits of human capacity. The laughter had dimmed to a low, unsettling hum, echoing through the store's ghostly atmosphere. You could save us, Lisa, a voice called, coming from a figure that stepped forward, a woman, lips cracked, eyes hollow. Just embrace it. Embrace what? Lisa spat, her anger rising against the darkness circling her. "Embrace the truth," the woman replied, her voice slithering like a snake. "Join the game. You could become one of us." Amidst the dread, Lisa felt a flicker of madness spark in her mind. "One of them?" she whispered, her body tensing. "Never." As if responding to her defiance, the flickering lights above began to hum ominously, swinging violently. One bulb exploded, showering them with glass shards. Lisa pulled Danny closer, shielding him as she stumbled back, trying to locate a way out. "We have to go," she cried, glancing back towards the figures, who now surged forward, a tide of horror ready to engulf them. "Mom, where?" Danny's voice trembled, eyes wide in terror. "Find a door," she shouted, adrenaline fueling her resolve. They rushed toward the back, the shadows trailing them like angry ghosts, their laughter now a cacophony of wild screams. Suddenly, they came across a door. A rusted metal door, barely hanging on its hinges. Lisa's heart raced. There was a sliver of hope, a chance of escape. "Help me," she grunted, shoving her shoulder against the door. It creaked open, revealing a dark storage room reeking of mildew and despair. She pulled Danny inside, slamming the door behind them. Panic surged through her veins as she tried to catch her breath. "What now?" Danny whimpered, clutching her leg. "Stay quiet." "Just a moment," she whispered, listening intently. The laughter outside was muted now but still palpable, like a beast lurking just beyond the door. "Mom, what do they want?" Danny's voice sliced through the thick air. Lisa could hardly answer. She didn't know. Then, through the darkness, she saw something shift. A faint light emerged from behind a pile of boxes. Moving cautiously toward it, the shadows felt alive again, lurking at the periphery of her vision, urging her to panic. As she neared the light, she could see it flicker and pulse, illuminating something hunched over within the debris. The moment she reached it, realization struck like a bolt of icy wind. It was a mirror, cracked and covered in grime. Yet in its reflection, she didn't see her own terrified face but instead, countless others. Faces twisted in agony, mouths open in silent screams. Memories of those who had been lost, players in the game, not victims, but willing participants, their fates sealed. "Mom! Don't look!" Danny cried out, but it was too late. The laughter grew again, a horrifying crescendo as she felt cold fingers grip the back of her neck, a whisper in her ear promising a release, tempting her with sweet oblivion. "Just join us." Just then, the door began to rattle violently, the weight of 100 desperate souls pushing against it. "Lisa!" The figures were calling from behind, their shadows clawing at the door. "Join us!" Lisa's heart raced, pounding so fiercely she thought it might break free. She had one choice left. To leap into the depths of that madness or fight through the terror. But deep down, she knew the truth lingered within that mirror. What lay beyond it? Would it lead her to Danny's safety, or plunge them both into eternal darkness? As the door buckled and splintered, she took a deep breath, looking back at her son's frightened little face. "Whatever happens, stay by my side," she urged, summoning every ounce of strength. And with that, she made her decision. Would she step into the light, or face the wrath of the shadows clawing at the door? The door shuddered violently, the hinges crying out like a trapped animal. Splinters flew as the dark figures beyond pressed closer, their insidious whispers weaving around Lisa's mind. "Embrace it, join the game." The promises tangled in her thoughts, clawing at the edges of her sanity. "Stay, Danny. Stay close," she yelled. The flickering light from the mirror reflected their terror, the haunting expressions of countless souls trapped in a madness she couldn't comprehend. But the necessity to act surged through her, a primal reaction to the impending dread. She turned, grabbing Danny's hand. The weight of darkness was palpable, as if it had taken form, coiling around her, hungry and waiting for her to break. Taking one last glance at the mirror, Lisa steeled herself. "We can't let them in," she shouted. A part of her felt drawn to the mirror as if it held the answers to her questions, the way out. But another part, the one steeped in parental instinct, screamed against that temptation. The door gave in, bursting open with a sickening creak as the figures surged into the room. Shadows twisted in the dim glow, faces morphing into grins that revealed sharp, predatory teeth. They were close enough now for Lisa to feel the frigid breath of their presence. "Join us, Lisa," a haunting voice echoed, a seductive murmur that sliced through her thoughts. "Be part of the truth." "No," she screamed, ribs tightening with the effort. "We'll fight." Ignoring the figures that crawled through the door, her feet propelled her toward the mirror. Whatever madness it contained, they needed to confront its truth. "Danny, look." She pointed at the mirror, urging him to see. "We have to understand." Danny's eyes widened in horror, but Lisa pressed on. "Look at their faces. They're lost." A shadow loomed closer, its gaze fixated on Danny with an eerie intent. They were too weak to resist but were stronger. The cold grip on her throwing hand intensifies as she pulled Danny closer, putting their reflections together before the cracked surface. The specter's laughter was an unsettling symphony, riotous and violent. Lisa's reflection blurred, faces melding with her own, as if their anguish seeped through the glass. "Mom, what are you doing?" Danny pleaded, his voice trembling, frail against the sinister melody of darkness. "Trust me," she replied. Images rushed at them: the game, the choice, the summary of every lost soul begging for liberation. "We have to break the cycle." Without hesitating, she pressed her palm against the mirror's cool surface. Her heart pounded like a war drum, thundering against her rib cage, as the pain and fear of the lost souls surged into her. Faces twisted and distorted, eyes pleading for escape or revenge. "Mom!" "No!" Danny shrieked, jerking back. He suddenly felt colder, the air around him thickening, the shadows writhing like snakes eager to strike. In that moment, the mirror exploded with light, blinding Lisa. She gasped, arms enveloping Danny protectively, holding onto him as they were thrust backward, falling into the very chaos they feared. The light receded, revealing the storage room transformed into an endless void, a vast expanse tinged with shadow. All around them, the spirits danced in a macabre celebration, twisting and howling, their faces shifting into grotesque versions of those Lisa loved. "Mom, what did we do?" Danny quaked in her grip, staring wide-eyed into the abyss around them. "No, no," Lisa's breath hitched. She had wanted to break the cycle. But now, they were meant to join it. The laughter grew louder, enveloping them, drowning every hope in despair, spinning into a vortex of madness. "Fight back, Lisa!" She screamed inwardly, but the pull was stronger than anything she had ever faced. "Hold on, Danny." Then suddenly, in the heart of that chaos, she caught a glimpse of the mirror's shard lying amidst the darkness, beckoning her with its twisting light. Was this their escape or another trap? Did she dare reach for it, knowing the consequences could weave them deeper into the fabric of their nightmare? With shadows closing in, she hesitated. What lay beyond that mirror shard? A chance at redemption or the final curtain call for them both? The shadows surged forward, hungry and relentless. Lisa's breath quickened, thickening with fear. She could feel the darkness pressing against her skin, coaxing her with a cool whisper. "Join us, it's so much easier, Mom." Danny's voice trembled, pulling her back to reality. He squeezed her hand, his small fingers trembling like leaves in a storm. "We can't let them take us." The laughter echoed around them, shrill and taunting, crashing into her like waves of despair. Lisa's eyes darted around the void, scanning the writhing phantoms twisted in their own torment. Some floated closer, their faces morphing into grotesque representations of her family. The apparition of her mother loomed, eyes hollow with longing. "Help us, Lisa, stay away!" Lisa shouted, shaking her head as if to dislodge the haunting image. "Make it stop!" Danny cried, tears streaming down his cheeks, panic rising in his voice. "Make it stop!" Every instinct told her to reach out for the shard glinting in the shadows. But what if it only drew them deeper into madness? Heart racing, Lisa felt the grip of shadows tightening, constricting the air around her. "Danny, look!" she urged, her voice frantic. "We have to get to that piece of glass. We can't let the darkness take us." "Are you sure?" he whimpered, taking a small step back, glancing at the figures swirling around them. "What if it's a trap?" "Trust me." She yanked him forward. Closer, they edged toward the shard, the shadows slithering behind them like serpents. Lisa felt a pull from the fragment, a promise of something more, a chance to break the cycle. But it felt wrong, like a lie wrapped in hope. The laughter shifted, forming words that burrowed into her brain. "You'll never escape your part of the game now." "No!" Lisa screamed, defiance erupting from her core. "We will not be part of your game." With a swift motion, she lunged toward the shard, grasping it tightly in her hand. It pulsed with a warm light, contrasting the icy grip of despair around her. For a moment, the void fell silent, anticipation hanging like a thick fog. "Do you feel that?" Danny whispered, eyes widening. The shadows recoiled slightly, hesitant as if sensing something shifting. But the voices roared back to life, furious and desperate. "Foolish girl. You cannot change what is destined." "Mom, we have to go," Danny yelled, yanking her arm. "Hold on tight," she ordered, swinging the shard in front of her, the light radiating outward. The cacophony of whispers and laughter crescendoed dangerously, clawing at her mind. Shadows screamed with rage, furious at the shift in power. "You will regret this." As soon as she held the shard aloft, a gale of energy sparked from it, blasting outward. The darkness screeched, retreating for just an instant, like a tide pulling back. Focusing every ounce of her will, Lisa cried out, "Break the cycle. We want freedom." The light erupted in a brilliant flash, spilling into the void and illuminating the faces around her. The spirits froze for a heartbeat, revealing their despair clearly, their tormented expressions trapped in eternal silence. Suddenly, there was a crackling noise, like 1,000 whispers melding into one explosion. The darkness convulsed, swirling in an agonizing dance, threatening to consume them again. "Don't let go." Danny's voice shook, a panic clinging to it. The light grew brighter, swallowing the shadows whole. With a final surge of courage, Lisa clasped Danny's hand tighter. "We're going to break free." But as the darkness roared and the light intensified, she realized she had no idea what awaited them beyond this moment. Would the light turn into another nightmare, or was this the escape they desperately needed? With the heavy weight of uncertainty in the air, they braced for impact, as both light and shadow converged in a blinding fury. What lay on the other side? Would they emerge whole or shattered? The answer lurked just out of reach, teasing and taunting as they were plunged into oblivion. The world around Lisa and Danny exploded into a kaleidoscope of blinding light, and for an agonizing second, she felt as if she were floating. Time stretched, every second dripping like an eternity. The warmth enveloped them, wrapping them in a cocoon that felt both safe and frightening. Then, jarring and violent, the darkness tore back at them. It was a shockwave, slapping them with cold, biting air. They stumbled, landing in a damp, cold space. Gasping, Lisa pulled Danny close, blinking against the stark brightness that still clung to the edges of her vision. They were no longer in the void. The shadows had been swept away, but where were they? The air was thick with a musty, rotten smell that clawed at her throat. She looked around, her heart pounding. They stood in what looked like an abandoned convenience store, the flickering fluorescent lights overhead casting eerie shadows across the stained linoleum floor. "Is this?" Danny's voice was barely a whisper, eyes wide and terrified. They're gone. Lisa breathed, disbelief flooding her. But the reprieve was fleeting. The remnants of despair clung to her like a second skin. No, she said, dread creeping in. There was something else here. A sense of watching, of being hunted. The aisles stood silent but charged, filled with odd items that felt out of place: cans of expired food, a dusty Slurpee machine, and a flickering TV playing static, the screen displaying grotesque images that twisted and distorted their faces. "Let us find a way out," Lisa urged, taking Danny's trembling hand. They began moving down the narrow aisles, the shadows of the past whispering behind them. The laughter from before no longer echoed, but Lisa felt its ghost lingering, taunting their escape. As they ventured deeper, the flicker of the lights grew more frantic, casting long, twisted shapes that danced along the walls. Faded posters advertising Monster Energy drinks and cheerful snacks felt grotesque in this abandoned tomb. The whole store seemed to sway as if alive, ready to swallow them whole. But it wasn't empty. A sound escalated behind them, the scrape of footsteps, slow and deliberate. Lisa's stomach dropped, urging her to move faster. "Danny, we need to hurry." "Tell me it's not them." Danny whimpered, glancing back nervously. The footsteps were accompanied by something worse: deep, ragged breaths that echoed off the walls of the store, reverberating in the hollow stillness. Lisa hissed, pressing her finger to her lips, trying to block out the noise. They ducked behind a shelf, hiding behind old boxes of stale snacks. The footsteps closed in. The figure stalking them stopped just a few feet away, breathing heavy, distorted. Lisa peeked around the corner. Sweat trickled down her spine, and her heart raced. A shadow moved in the flickering light. It was a man, or wasn't he? He was cloaked in darkness, eyes glinting like knives. "I can smell your fear," he rasped, voice a low growl. "You think you can escape?" Lisa's stomach twisted. "We have to find a way out," she muttered, her voice trembling. "Run!" she shouted, grabbing Danny's hand once more. They darted toward the back exit, dodging through the aisles. But the ghostly figure was relentless, advancing out of the shadows with horrifying speed, an impossibly wide grin splitting his face. "Don't think you can hide from the darkness, it's always watching." The exit loomed ahead, but would they reach it in time? The store seemed to shift, trapping them as the air grew thick with despair again. Suddenly, the lights flickered out completely, plunging them into a chilling darkness. "No!" Danny screamed, clutching her tighter. "Stay close. We can't stop." They ran blindly, praying for a miracle, but all they heard was the rush of shadows closing in behind them. With every ounce of fear driving them forward, what lay ahead was uncertain. Would they find safety, or was it just the beginning of their nightmare? As something icy brushed against her back, she gasped and turned, her heart thundering in her ears. What terror awaited them in the pitch black? The hunt had only just begun. The darkness enveloped them, a suffocating blanket. Lisa felt the cold sweat on her brow and listened to the frantic thudding of her heart. Each breath tasted stale and heavy, the air thick with an invisible dread. She clutched Danny's hand tighter, feeling the warmth of his small fingers as if they were her last link to safety. "Which way?" Danny whispered, voice trembling. There were no signs to guide them. The store transformed into a twisted mirror, shelves looming like jagged teeth in the darkness. Lisa took a breath, her shaky exhalation barely breaking the silence. Crack! The sharp sound made both of them jump. The flicker returned, casting ghostly light momentarily. In that instant, Lisa caught a glimpse of the figure, closer now, eyes glinting with a mixture of malice and hunger. "Keep moving," she urged, dragging Danny forward. Each step was uncertain, every creaking floorboard echoed ominously. She resisted the urge to look back, knowing that their pursuer thrived on fear. But where were they going? Lisa's mind raced. The exit was supposed to be right ahead, a simple door to freedom. But now, the aisles twisted in what felt like a funhouse of horror, leading them deeper into the store. They ducked behind a display of dilapidated magazines. Lisa's pulse screamed in her ears as they huddled, holding their breaths. Is it gone? Danny's voice was nearly silent. No, Lisa murmured, trying to sound braver than she felt. She peeked around the edge of the shelves. The flickering lights cast monstrous shadows, and just a few feet away, the man stood, still and silent, consuming the dark. Then, like a predator mustering its prey, he turned, tilting his head as if he could hear their hearts pounding. Running won't save you. His voice slithered through the gloom, a chilling promise laced with mockery. You think you're clever? Lisa bit her lip, panic clawing at the edges of her mind. They needed a plan. We need to distract him, she whispered, looking around frantically. The Slurpee machine. Slushies dribbled from its rusted spout, remnants left to rot. Painfully aware of every second ticking by, she knew it was a gamble. Danny, listen to me, she said, eyes darting nervously. We're going to make some noise. Stay low. With that, she moved toward the machine, fear trembling in her limbs. She punched the button, stale syrup oozing into a cup, a sickly sweet stench wafting into the air. The slushing noise echoed, cutting through the silence. What are you doing? Danny gasped, wide-eyed. Just trust me. She hissed. As the figure began to turn, the sound pulled his attention. Lisa nodded to Danny, heart racing. Now. They dashed past the machine, making for the back of the store. But hell unfolded as they did. With a cry of rage, the man lunged after them, his footsteps pounding, unnaturally fast. Go, go! Lisa shouted, adrenaline surging through her veins. They sprinted down a narrow aisle, shelves teetering ominously as they raced by. But the exit was still a dream away. Lisa swerved to avoid a falling box of snacks, and suddenly, a massive shadow loomed overhead, a stack of products crashing down. Watch out! Danny screamed, throwing himself forward. The world erupted in chaos, the shelves shaking as the man's laughter echoed behind them, a twisted melody reverberating in the dark. Can you feel the darkness closing in? Lisa barely had time to catch herself before stumbling further into the abyss of aisles. Could the next corner finally reveal an end, or was there no escape from the nightmare? Each heartbeat pulled them closer to something unimaginable. With a glance back at the grinning face overshadowed by the flickering lights, she knew they were just beginning a new round of the hunt. The question now was, how far could they run? As they plunged deeper into the maze of despair, the store morphed into something else entirely, something alive. What awaited them in this suffocating darkness? Would they escape, or would they plunge deeper into the horror? The chaos crashed around them, a fierce cacophony of shuddering shelves and crumbling snacks. Lisa yanked Danny forward, adrenaline spurring her on. Keep moving! She shouted, her voice barely cutting through the din. They plunged into the next aisle, frantic breaths mingling with the stinking syrup still wafting from the Slurpee machine. What had once been a source of nostalgic comfort became a sinister reminder of their own desperation. The fluorescent lights above flickered, casting unsettling shadows that danced around them. Every instinct screamed at her to slow down, to catch her breath. But there was no time to give in to fear, not with that maniacal laughter echoing in the distance like a haunting lullaby. It crawled into her mind, taunting, promising to engulf them. Lisa, I don't want to play hide and seek anymore. Danny's voice trembled, almost breaking. She squeezed his hand tighter, determination overriding doubt. Neither do I. Just keep your head down. We'll find a way out. But even she wasn't sure about the truth of those words. As they rounded a corner, a different sight met them, a narrow exit leading to the staff room. It was dim, but she could see the flickering light above it, a signal of hope. There. Over there. But even as they dashed toward it, the ground shuddered beneath them. A low rumble was followed by an explosion of rattling items cascading from the shelves. Lisa stumbled and almost lost her grip on Danny's hand. "Hang on!" she gasped, pulling him back just in time. The figure behind them was relentless, his rasping breath growing louder as he closed in. "Don't think you can escape," he called out, his tone dripping with malice. "I'll always be here, waiting." They fought through the aisles, Lisa's legs burning with each consumed second. Desperate measures begot desperate times. She needed an escape route. In the distance, she noticed a door slightly ajar, the faint glint of light beyond it calling out like a siren's song. "Danny!" "The door!" She urged him forward, their movements frantic as they took another sharp turn. As they reached the door, Lisa yanked it open, and the sudden brightness nearly blinded her. The blare of the store's fluorescent bulbs hit them like a wall. Just beyond the threshold, they could hear people all very much alive, unaware of the distorted reality lurking behind the shelves. "Help us!" Danny cried out, a plea for salvation, but no voice emerged from Lisa's throat. The fear of opening that door and revealing themselves was palpable, yet so was the choking grip of the darkness behind them. "Move!" she hissed, pushing Danny into the light. As they stepped outside, a chilling breeze swept through, carrying the faint echo of laughter from within the store. The laughter behind them morphed into a deep growl, snapping Lisa back to her senses. It was as if the store was a living entity, breathing and pulsating with its own rhythm, dark and relentless. The outside world felt surreal. Familiar yet foreign, with cars rushing past and people milling about. But who would believe their story? The normalcy suffocated her. Could she really trust the sanity of those around her? What if? What if he follows us? Danny's voice broke through her thoughts, his wide eyes glistening with fear. The shadows behind them loomed larger, a stark reminder of the terror they had just escaped. "We can't look back. We have to keep moving," Lisa insisted as a chilling thought struck her. Did their ordeal end here, or was the darkness merely biding its time, waiting for the right moment to strike? Each step away from that cursed store felt like false security, a trap rather than freedom. Ahead, she spotted a darkened alleyway, an ominous road leading away from the bustle. "That way!" Lisa forcefully grabbed Danny's hand, tugging him down the path. As they hesitated at the entrance, the darkness wafted closer. "Remember, we can hide in the light," Danny whispered, the glint of fear in his eyes betraying his bravado. "But shadows don't hide. They hunt." What would they discover in those depths of oblivion? Was it truly safe to flee, or were they only just beginning to unravel a terrifying truth? The alley swallowed them whole, its tight walls closing in like a grave. Each step sent shivers down Lisa's spine, worry clawing at her throat. The light from the street lamps flared dimly, flickering, barely holding back the darkness that seemed to seep from the cracks in the pavement. They were free of the store, but for how long? "Mom?" Danny's voice wobbled, uncertainty creeping into his words. "What if he finds us?" Lisa knelt beside him, brushing a tear away with her thumb. "He won tea. We're safe. Just a little longer, I promise." But a pit deep in her stomach told her otherwise. The darkness loved to play, and they were still part of its twisted game. The moment felt fragile, like a soap bubble ready to pop. They couldn't linger too long, but turning into a corner, a dead end, seemed like a desperate risk. She could feel the shadows clinging closer. "Let's check this way," she said, leading him toward the faint glow of a diner sign nestled at the end of the alley. The diner stood like a beacon of normalcy, its neon lights buzzing softly, inviting amidst the chaos of their minds. As they approached, the sounds of clinking dishes and laughter floated through the door. People were seated, talking, eating. It felt like stepping into another world, one untouched by the evil they had faced. "Maybe we can call for help," Danny suggested, hope flickering back to life. But as they entered, the warmth of the light fell thin, quickly overshadowed by the stalker's breath echoing in Lisa's mind. The waitress looked up, her bright smile faltering as she caught sight of the wild-haired woman and her frightened son. "You two okay?" she asked, concern evident in her voice. "Please, can we use your phone?" Lisa asked, anxiety choking her words. Instead of answering, the waitress stiffened, her eyes drifting to the door just behind them. A familiar chill crawled up Lisa's spine. The figure from the store, his eyes glinting with sinister excitement under the neon glow, had followed them. "No," Lisa whispered, heart pounding, skin crawling. "Mom!" Danny screamed, pointing toward the door where the figure had appeared, or had he always been there? The diner became a scene from a macabre play, everything moving in slow motion. Fear pulsed through her veins. Lisa turned, adrenaline surging, and pulled Danny behind her just as the entity stepped forward, its breath like frost. The patrons turned to look, their laughter fading into a horrid silence as the man's grin expanded. "You thought you could escape," he hissed, the shadows clinging to him, thick and writhing. "The game continues." The waitress reeled, backing away from him, her confusion giving way to terror. The laughter of the customers was gone, replaced by whispers and gasps. Everybody in the diner felt it, the looming dread hanging overhead like a thunderstorm about to break. "Mom, what do we do?" Danny's voice trembled against her ear. "Run!" she yelled, bursting toward the back exit as the figure advanced, shadows writhing like serpents at his feet. She desperately pushed through the kitchen, grabbing Danny's hand, their feet scrambling against the slick floor. In the kitchen's chaos, pots clattered, ovens grew silent, and the pulse of danger quickened. The figure's laughter echoed behind them, mocking, a spine-chilling invitation. They bolted through the kitchen door, burst outside into a side alley and stopped dead in their tracks. Before them lay a long expanse of nothing. No, Lisa's heart sank. How can this be happening again? Ahead, the alley twisted into a labyrinth, a cycle that looped back into itself. Shadows emerged, swirling at the edges, ready to ensnare them once more. "Mom!" Danny cried, panic rising like smoke. "We have to find a way to break the cycle," she urged, determination filling her voice. "Look for a way out." As they stumbled forward, desperation turned frantic. They turned, disoriented by the maze of shadows surrounding them. But every direction brought them back toward the creeping figures, ghostly hands reaching out to grab them, to pull them in. Just as despair threatened to take hold, Lisa spotted a patch of light cutting through the darkness at the end of the alley, a door. "There. Danny, we can make it." But just as hope ignited, the darkness shifted. The figure was on them, a distorted face etched with madness, bleached by shadows. "You can't run from your fate," he rasped, and that laughter built into a hideous crescendo. Dread slashed through her, wrapping around her heart like barbed wire. "Danny, hold on to me." They ran. They sprinted towards that glimmer of light, each heartbeat pushing them closer to salvation or doom. The sound of laughter spiraled, threatening to pull them apart. The door was right there. Just a little further. The world faded around them, focus narrowed, shadows clawing in their wake. She reached for the door, grasping the handle, and felt the icy caress of a hand snag her arm. "Please!" she shouted, swinging the door open. The moment was electric, the air crackled, the world beyond shone with vibrant colors. As they burst through, the shadows recoiled, shrieking against the light as if it burned them. The laughter echoed behind, but for that flickering instant, they were free. Then silence enveloped them, and Lisa gasped, falling to the ground beside Danny. They looked around, the brightness blinding, the landscape beautiful. Had they escaped? But dread remained, an undertone, a reminder lurking in the recesses of her mind. The laughter still echoed, but now it felt distant, intertwined with the rightness of their surroundings. "Mom?" Danny's fear melted into confusion. Where are we? I don't know, Lisa replied, unwilling to break away from their cocoon of light. But we're safe at least for now. Just then, a low rumble shook the ground beneath them. It felt as if something else was awakening, a tremor that echoed their own heartbeat. Shadows still lingered at the edges of their vision, but they embraced the light, knowing now with a fierce certainty that survival meant resisting the darkness. The laughter faded to a whisper, surrendering to hope at least for this moment. They had escaped, but that game was far from over. Let us go, Lisa said, taking Danny's hand as they ventured deeper into the light, a quest to find their place once more. To fight back against the shadows still lurking behind them, they had to stay strong. And together they would face whatever awaited, determined to embrace the dawn, united against the darkness. Stay close, she thought, hope ignited anew. As they moved forward, they knew they had the strength to conquer the darkness lurking just beyond the horizon. They would reclaim their lives, one step at a time. This was just the beginning. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and show your support. Flood the comments section with every reaction you had and your theories about this ending. The conversation is just getting started. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who desperately need to hear this thrilling conclusion. Your support means everything.